Drop it like it's cold. A curtain of icy chill sweeps across Colorado, temperatures dropping dozens of degrees in just minutes. Prepare for cold like Denver hasn't felt in 30 years. Dangerous cold. As the city prepares to shelter hundreds of people from the cold and also provide a warm bed for hundreds of newly arrived migrants. The mayor warning today there will likely come a point when Denver can't help anymore. Doctors worry about people ending up with two viruses at the same time over the holiday season. An elected official fails miserably in his attempt to apologize for his racist videos. And tonight we know there are Coloradans without homes who are trying to make it in their cars. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign will help get them into motels during this extreme cold and headed for housing after that. Because you don't just watch, because this is next. Colorado is used to cold, but this is going to be brutal. Temperatures and wind chills like Denver haven't seen in 30 years. Dangerously cold enough that schools and some offices will be closing over the next couple of days. The cold front moving down from Wyoming into Colorado could be seen this afternoon. It was a wall of dust and dirt that divided a 50-degree afternoon from a single-digit evening. As the cold front blew in, it was a blizzard up by the Wyoming line. This video from Carr today. Up north of the line, Cheyenne went from 42 degrees a few hours ago to a wind chill of close to 40 below now. In Denver, temperatures in our literal backyard dropped 30 degrees in 20 minutes. Here's the time lapse for you. Out at DIA, it was 37 degrees an hour ago and is currently below zero. When the front hit Denver, it looked dark and ominous. Wind picked up, the temperatures plunged. But look at all that junk in the air with the birds running for cover. Meteorologist Lauren Robinson forecast exactly what was going to happen and when. She joins us now for a look at a cold night, Lauren, like some Coloradans haven't seen in their lives.
Yeah, it's going to be intense, and we've already seen the biggest portion of that push its way into the state. And as we've been warning, it was going to be fast and it was going to be strong, and that's exactly what happened. So now let's go ahead and take a look at our current conditions. We're at 1 below zero at DIA. Snow is starting to fall in the area. It feels like 22 below zero with those winds coming in from the northeast at around 17 miles per hour. Now let's take a look at this 24-hour temperature change map. I love these maps. Yes, we had videos where you could see that front push in, but these maps show it pretty clearly as well. So you can see where this Arctic front has pushed its way down. We're 35 degrees colder right now than we were just this time yesterday, and north central and northeastern corners of the state anywhere between 20 to 30 to over 30 degrees colder. So as we take a look at our highs this afternoon, before that front pushed in, we made it all the way to 51 degrees today. Hard to tell as we're -1 right now, but we were at 51 degrees. And then when that front pushed in, we dropped 37 degrees between 4 and 5 o'clock this afternoon. And now we take a look at our current temperatures. We're at 1 below here in Denver, surrounding areas seeing the similar temperatures. But then you can see where that front hasn't made it yet, where temperatures are still in the 30s and 40s in the southeastern corner of the state. So behind this front, we're also seeing strong winds coming in anywhere between 30, 40, almost 50 miles per hour. And that's creating the wind chill, making it feel like anywhere between 20 to 30 degrees below zero. So we are going to continue to monitor our HD Doppler radar as all of this snow pushes down from the north behind that front. With that, we have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings that'll be in effect. We also have wind chill warnings. This is going to be the big deal. That's going to be in effect until midday Friday. That's where it's going to feel like anywhere 40 to 50 degrees below zero. We have a high wind warning down south. Tonight, we'll see those lows near -14. Yes, -14. And tomorrow, we won't even make it out of the negatives. Our high is 3 below zero, and then we start to rebound as we get closer to Christmas.
Wow, amazing. Back up to 50 by Christmas. Lauren, thank you. Denver's mayor warned today there will likely come a time when the city will not have the capacity to help any more migrants coming here from the southern border. Mayor Michael Hancock said that resources are already at a breaking point. Our Steve Stager asked the mayor directly, what happens when the city feels it's run out of room?
This has been an incredible effort. The city of Denver now estimates to have spent some $2 million in shelter, transportation, food, and other costs.
Denver is asking for funding offered by the state to pick up most of that cost, and will ask the federal government to reimburse some too. But that number is a stark reminder of the cost of this humanitarian crisis.
We also have finite resources. We don't have, open chests of resources that we can constantly pull from without endangering the financial viability of the city.
Overnight, 110 more migrants arrived in the city of Denver. 780 of them remain in emergency shelters run by the city and their nonprofit partners. That number represents about half of the 1,400 plus the city has helped since December 9th. And it shows that people are moving on. Denver's Human Services Department says they estimate about 50 to 60% of the migrants who've arrived have plans to move on. Plans challenged by current conditions.
Our buses are getting canceled yet again because of weather other places, so those who had a plan to move on are staying put for now.
The city says it has no way of knowing how many people will arrive here each day, but the mayor acknowledged today there is a limit.
There will come a time, I hope, where people will understand that we have, just like in anything, we have finite resources, and we are going to have to make a call based on the resources that we have available.
He just can't say what will happen when that limit is reached.
We don't know yet, to be honest and candid with you. We don't know what that looks like. We are trying to discuss, imagine scenarios, what that might look like. But obviously, we not only want to be as humane as possible to accommodate those who are not only coming into our city as migrants, but also those who are unhoused in our city.
Mayor also said today that temporary shelters in 2 city rec centers were just meant to be that, temporary. And he says there are ongoing discussions about how to transition on from them, though he wouldn't go into specifics about what the details of those ongoing conversations are, what it might look like. He says it has to be a move to more long-term housing for the folks who are going to stay here for the long term.
So all of the city's efforts to help these migrants are layered onto existing efforts to help people who are already living on the streets, which, as we have been reporting for years now, is a population that is large and growing.
And gotten larger during the pandemic. Though the city's housing stability director said today they anticipate this is about a 31% increase in service to people who are on the streets right now. So you think about that, it's about 31% more than there were back before December 9th.
And it happened
just like that.
Like that.
2 weeks.
All right, Steve, thank you. So up and down the Front Range tonight, there are homeless advocates and nonprofits and city and state workers all working to get people off the streets and into shelters because they know that it's going to be a matter of survival tonight. The National Guard is even involved, working inside those warming centers and also responding to any logistical requests. The Denver Coliseum has been opened as an emergency warming shelter, 250 beds for anyone who needs to get out of the cold. And the city is working to add more bed space at the Coliseum if it's needed. People living on the streets tell us they know that their normal ways of staying warm on a cold night are not going to work in this kind of cold. Avion Patterson told us, headed indoors.
I've been in situations where I almost froze to death in the cold. I try to just put on as much clothes as I can. I probably put on like 3 pair of pants, 3 shirts, and a jacket or coat.
The Coliseum is a temporary shelter. As we told you here last night, the city says that it is not likely to be used long term, even for the migrants coming here. Coliseum will be open until at least Saturday morning. The city of Denver says there are currently about 3 dozen of its people out on the streets trying to convince folks to come in out of the cold. So for the past 33 years, advocates for the homeless have hosted an annual vigil to remember people who have lived or died on Denver's streets. And this year's vigil just happens to be on what could be the coldest night in decades. Yet they still gathered outside the city and county building about an hour ago. They lit 263 luminaries and read aloud 263 names of Coloradans lost after living on the streets. There are Coloradans who will spend the night in their cars in the brutal cold tonight, choosing that as their in-between places to stay. And there is a nonprofit that works to make that as safe as possible and to help Coloradans find places to live so that they're not roughening in their cars any longer than they have to. The Colorado Safe Parking Initiative is a nonprofit that provides people with a secure place to park and bathrooms and a way to freshen up before they go to work in the morning. Because about half the people who are using the nonprofit's parking lots are working. They just don't have enough money for housing. Nearly all are experiencing homelessness for the first time, just trying to get through this downturn in their luck. The Colorado Safe Parking Initiative just opened a new lot in Commerce City that is specifically for families with children living in their vehicles together. The goal at all of their many lots on an extremely cold night like this is to offer people motel rooms. For those who want to stay with their cars, perhaps everything they have in life, they'll offer those folks sleeping bags and other cold weather gear. That certainly depletes the nonprofit's funds. So that's where we come in. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. As always, to get us started, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5. These next few nights will be dangerously cold for Coloradans living in their cars. The Colorado Safe Parking Initiative will be there for them on those nights and on many nights to come.
A city council member from Aurora tries to apologize for his racist videos by explaining how he was a victim. We'll ask the state climatologist whether the extreme temperature drop is related to climate change, and head to the zoo where it seems the animals are aware of what's coming.
I think that, there may be some species that know something's changing.
The gates are closed to visitors. The animals are getting help staying warm. Next.
Had to get that fireplace kicking. It's just too cold tonight. The Aurora City Councilman facing criticism for making ads for his restaurant that mocked Mexicans, Muslims, and other groups is now responding for the first time. Conservative Councilman Steve Sundberg is out with a statement that portrays himself as the victim, saying that he made those videos to keep his restaurant afloat during the pandemic. The videos, first reported on by the Aurora Sentinel, have been criticized by community leaders as racist and unbecoming of an elected official in Colorado's most diverse city. Sundberg initially refused to comment on the videos. Now he's issued a long statement saying that his videos imitating various ethnic groups, quote, drove business and cheered people up. Sundberg also issued one of those classic "if I offended anyone" apologies, saying, quote, for anyone I did offend, I apologize and I'll learn from it. He added that his restaurant is still in business. So COVID is not the concern this holiday season as it was last year or the year before. Doctors' current worry is that people who are already sick with the crud that's floating around could catch a second virus over the holidays and end up in worse shape. Here's our Jaleesa Arizari with that.
Complicated doesn't even scratch the surface. While families gather this holiday season, a group with unusual circumstances will be here.
I want to emphasize that these are very rare infections. That there are not very many of them, but they are definitely an increase of what we've seen in the past.
Dr. Sam Dominguez is talking about invasive cases of Group A strep, a bacteria virus often easily treated, but in some cases children have seen lately could bring dangerous complications.
Kids presenting with very severe pneumonia, sepsis, and this is when the bacteria gets into the bloodstream, toxic shock, bone, joint, and muscle infections. Several kids with severe sinus disease, and then necrotizing fasciitis, which is a very severe type of skin infection.
And I think we have lots of questions trying to understand what might be driving these increases.
2 children have already died from severe strep infections in Colorado. State health leaders are trying to find ways to prevent more. They say oftentimes the way to do that is preventing everything else.
While Group A strep is a bacterial infection, children with a respiratory virus like RSV, SARS-CoV-2, or influenza may be at higher risk of getting a secondary infection like Group A strep, either at the same time or shortly following these respiratory infections.
Group A strep doesn't just impact children. Cases in adults increased by 62% in Colorado this year. And even though there is no vaccine for it, getting an updated COVID booster or your flu shot can be effective. For Next, I'm Jaleesa Arizari.
So you see RSV and flu and COVID numbers all trending down. Great news. What we see in a week or two after holiday gatherings will certainly be worth watching.
Whatever happened to climate change, said your uncle on Facebook about today's cold. Well, hold on. Let's actually talk about extreme temperature swings and climate change. Turns out it's not such a simple answer.
This is just another day for them. They're going to be happy and comfortable.
Well, that makes one of us. It's a beautiful day to be a penguin. We go to a very cold zoo next.
Some of the holiday joy that you have shared with us over the last week or so. We know Colorado's gotten popped by the polar vortex in previous years. There were cold snaps in 83, 89, and 90. Temperatures this cold and this far-reaching across the U.S., though, those are unusual. We asked Russ Schumacher, the state's climatologist, if there's any role that climate change plays in these extreme temperature swings and if we might see more of them as a result. Schumacher told us there's a lot of research on this topic, just not a clear answer.
The jury's still a bit out on that. There's some research that suggests that as the climate warms, these kind of, quick bursts of extreme temperatures, both warm and cold, might become more common. But other research shows that really as the climate warms, mostly what we're going to see is just a reduction in extreme cold.
Schumacher pointed out what OG Coloradans know. The idea of dropping 50 to 60 degrees in a day or getting below zero is not uncommon in this state. What makes this storm unique, he says, is how strong the wind is going to be. He says usually when it is this brutally cold, the wind is fairly calm. When cold like this hits the Denver Zoo, some of the animals are jubilant, some of them are bewildered. The staff doesn't have time to be either. They have work to do.
There may be some species that know something's changing. Everybody can be rest assured that the animals are going to be extremely well taken care of.
Can you get my picture?
We've got our Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep over here. They're a native species and very tolerant to cold and heat, so they'll be just fine tomorrow. This is just another day for them. They're going to be happy and comfortable, whether it's -10 or 100 degrees, they'll be just fine. Well, right now we're in tropical discovery. This is 75 degrees and nice and humid year-round, so it's a great place for animals, and it's actually a really nice place for guests to warm up too. How are you guys?
He's not shaking because he's cold.
No, I don't believe so. So we have a lot of animals native to warmer conditions. Those include elephants, giraffes. Those animals they have great indoor areas, behind the scenes habitats, where they'll be able to stay warm throughout the day and night. The lions actually have, there's kind of a big rock structure right in the middle of the main yard of Predator Ridge. That's a heated rock. This cold is obviously exceptional for Denver and Colorado, but really from an animal care perspective, it's standard operating procedures for us. But there won't be a lot of tucking in, certainly not with the lions or tigers.
Not with that guy, not there. The nonprofit that helps Coloradans living in their cars got some bad news today. They're losing a big chunk of their funding from a city that took in far less marijuana revenue than expected. So I'm hoping that we can give them a boost as they continue and expand their work across many counties. It's immediate help for people living in their cars in the cold, and then long-term guidance to find housing. Next. I was talking to one of the founders of the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative who told me that when she found out that there were a good number of people in Colorado living in their cars, her first instinct was like, well, how do we stop that right now? And then she learned more and learned that there are Coloradans, there are full families who do this temporarily. They're convinced that if they can just save another paycheck or two, that they're going to be able to afford rent and get into a place again. So then the nonprofit was born, providing secure lots for people to park in overnight, plus bathrooms, warm cup of coffee, a place to freshen up before they go to work. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me in donating as the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative expands their number of lots and services up and down the Front Range. They just opened a dedicated lot for families with children. As a parent, I cannot imagine, but I am beyond grateful that this nonprofit exists and is out there doing the work to get people into motels on a brutally cold night like this tonight, to make it as safe as possible on other nights, and get them into housing as soon as possible. See you next time.